So how does that then manifest into our next life?
Karma drives the world, and how our personal world, I should say. So how I am now will determine how I am to the next moment, the next minute, et cetera, et cetera. So including as I pass from death into the afterlife. If you can start now, literally at this moment, working on your karma, becoming less selfish, that follows through into the afterlife, which then can follow through into the rebirth.
This is Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between podcast. Today, we are talking about the Tibetan Book of the Dead with Morty Levine and Lama Lanang. But we're actually going to start by talking about how we deal with difficult situations, because that's where we are just coming in here, and we are using what just happened almost as a lesson here. So we've been on already for almost an hour trying to figure out the technology behind this. And Lama, maybe you can just chime in and share what you just said, because we've had some breakdowns in communication. We've had difficulty figuring out links and everything. And you just summed up beautifully what this experience is. So I'll let you start with that.
Yes, thank you. So what I'm saying is when weather is beautiful, the good food, good company, and then everything's easy to we live and easy to start anything. But there's some challenges of life. That's just the teachings. It's really it's a blessing. A lot of times we always look as a negative, but actually this teaches us really who we are. Sometimes this go through, so then really come out real other person. So, and that means this is really sort of. And this way start means something's going to be very wonderful thing. I think this conversation, people can learn and with it. So it's nothing is forever, everything's impermanent. And the things are changing. And things there's a good and bad is never. So this experience also, I think I have fun, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
So Morty, could you start by explaining to us the Tibetan Book of the Dead and your version that you wrote with the Lama, the Tibetan Book of the Dead for beginners?
Sure. Thank you. So yeah, the Tibetan Book of the Dead was written by a great master, a great Buddhist master named Guru Rinpoche, or another name was Padmasambhava, in the 8th century, and he's also known as the second Buddha. The first Buddha is the Buddha that we all see in statues, lived 2,600 years ago, and this gentleman was known as the second Buddha. So great realized being, wrote this book or wrote the teachings, but it didn't come to the forefront until about the 8th century, when another great master discovered those teachings and then started to, of course, spread them. And for many years, it was only taught to very advanced practitioners, so great monks and great realized masters. And it wasn't until about, I think 100 or so years ago, when it was translated into English. And apparently, and I've read it, apparently translation has a number of errors in it. But aside from that, so it's not quite correct, good translation. But aside from that, it's very dense teachings that go back hundreds of years, over 1,000 years. And unless you have a very deep knowledge of Tibetan Buddhism and have been practicing and studying for quite a while, it really won't make that much sense. But the core of the book is really for great people, great masters who understand the end of life, like Lama Lanang, to be able to lead their students or practitioners through the dying process and through the afterlife so that they can have an auspicious rebirth. So that's kind of the essence of the book. But of course, it's much more than that one sentence. But yeah.
Do we have to be in an active dying process to be learning the lessons of this book? And if not, how do we then, where do we begin? How do we begin thinking about these concepts and start applying them to our lives now? So it isn't just when we're actively facing death that we think, okay, now's the time I got to get it together.
Lama, would you like to answer that one?
Yes, and definitely. And this is a difficult time. So we just a couple years go through the COVID-19 in coronavirus. So also that's is kind of now for kind of really we need to focus the death and dying for the world. But any time, so we always in this world, we sort of, I'm going to retire, and then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to prepare to die. But the truth is, tomorrow comes first or death comes first. We don't know. So we need the fight with this warrior. They come in. We don't know when they come in. And we have to prepare now. And when the enemy, the warrior arrives, then we try to prepare is a big mess. So exactly the same way, we prepare right now. The now is the key to everything. The past is like a dream of last night. Last night you have a dream. When you wake up, good dream, bad dream, it's dream. It's no difference in your past. The future is just dreaming. This present moment is the gift we have. So anything we need to focus is very important to start this moment, the present moment. So you see, a birth and death is something natural, but everybody don't want to talk about death, and anybody wants to go through that death. But if we really learn the death, then death is not a death. Death can be liberation. If we don't learn the death, then death is a very difficult place we go through ourselves, or our family, or friends, and so on and so on. So it's something like that's the reason. So we need to start now. Is key to everything.
And how do we start? I mean, I hear living in the now is one piece of that, and a lot of people say that. You talk in the book about karma. Could you explain that concept a little bit more? I think there's maybe a westernized misunderstanding of what karma is and what karma looks like. But how do we, as we are moving towards death, which we all are, whether or not we know when that's going to be, how do we begin to prepare? How do we work on our karma?
So that's why the reason is now, but we begin to at least in sort of I just wanted to start. I have to be enjoyed every moment. When the moment of the death come, I don't want to have regrets. So I just don't need if I live longer, I should enjoy my life. And we always are waiting for something. So it's very important to first is enjoying this moment. And if you enjoy it every day, you enjoy for living, then you're peaceful dying. Like when the moment death comes, you're sort of, I'm enjoying my life. I have a good life. I think I'm dying, but I'm happy. You see, that's a sort of kind of, everybody can do that. Everybody should think this way to really kind of enjoy what life we have. Doesn't matter rich or poor, doesn't matter man or woman, and just really what we have to be accept and enjoy. But also, the death is sort of, if you really learning, and the death is as a kind of amazing thing. And to sort of, you can die as really a meditation state, you can die. So also you can liberate yourself. And so in Tibetan, there we say everything is kind of karma connections. That's why we are living in this moment. So, and that's the reason is that we have chance to realize that everything's kind of run by this, what we see, what we hear of this existence of the samsaric world is run by the karma. So, in the karma is also there's a bad karma, good karma. Karmas we live in is also we create in different lifetimes, but also we can begin to right now we work with the karma.
So we don't have to, we can work on our karma in this life to change our karma in this life. Is that?
Yes, yes, definitely. Even though like this, you're in a home. Today you need to clean things, do the dishes. 1 hour you need to wash your laundry, do everything. Then you have tomorrow relaxing day. It's like it just you can change it of this physical work. Exactly same way, and the past life karma brings this life, and this life, what we're doing is bring the next life. And so that's why is we have there's the chance in our hand. That's why in Buddha says, there's path of liberation, but I only show you the path of liberation, but follow or not, it's up to you. It's nobody really wash our karma or clear our karma. We want to have good karma, then we have to start with the work with our mind, and then our speech, then our actions. So those are the karma makers. You see, like for example, speech, those lies or harsh speeches or yelling, scream, arguing, gossiping, all these are karma connections. So it's like you see sometimes you say negative words. Automatically, the other person feels bad too because this kind of speech creates negative karmas. But it always starts with our mind. So that's why begins to want to change. Then we have advantage to right now. Just this moment is key to work with our mind, speech, and body.
So you're talking about what we think, how we act, what we say, in terms of how that then creates karma in this lifetime and beyond.
Yes, but also we have chance to change which way we want. Sometimes we say, "Oh, I want so and so." Some people say, "I want happiness. I want happy." And one time this guy was talking to me. He said, "Oh, I want happy." Then I said, "Okay, wonderful. What is to you as happiness?" He said he don't know. Mm. That's our problem, you see. Mm-hmm. That's why it's if you want to happy, then you can what you make you happy. What's kind of place, what things, what's way you can create this moment, right? And also you want a peace. Exactly, you can start with this moment. The same is good karma. Now I'm thinking, many like in a Buddhist way, say many lifetimes in this lifetime. So I go through all things, but today I realize is the driver of my future in my life, next life is the me, my mind. So when you realize then when you work with your mind, you can have chance to reach enlightenment. In Tibetan, we have there's a rainbow body. When person dies, nothing got left, only fingernails and hairs. And so that's opportunities in our hand. Or you want to just definitely want better lives. And also you want to be a better person. You have to start right now.
So what gets reborn when we die? I don't know, Morty, Lama, whomever.
Sure. Actually, I want to talk very briefly about karma one more time. So right now, I like this example to give people a sense of, well, do I have to wait? As Lama said, can I wait till tomorrow? Yeah, you can wait till tomorrow, but you don't have to, nor should you, because how we are at this very, very moment, if I yell at someone, they're likely to yell back at me. I'm likely to continue to yell again. Or find myself in a yell. So it happens literally right now. We can create our own positive karma, and that continues on till the next moment, the next moment, the next minute, the next hour, the next day. So yeah, if you want to wait until, assuming you know when you're going to die, it's very, very difficult to change that habit before you die. If you're an angry person and 20 minutes before you die or 2 days, it's not like all of a sudden you're not going to be angry. You have to create that positive karma or that positive habit. So anyways, yeah. So what gets reborn? Go ahead, Amy.
I just want to stop you for a second, because I had this situation a couple weeks ago where, and I think this is sort of what you're talking about, and I'd like to illuminate it a little bit. I was walking out of a coffee shop with my dog, and this woman was standing at the entrance to the coffee shop with her dog, and her dog started yapping at my dog, and my dog kind of lunged as I opened the door, lunged and barked at her dog. And she pulled her dog away, and I walked out, and she said to me, I said, I'm so sorry. He normally doesn't do that. And she said, normally, your dog is a menace to okay, I have a yellow lab, first of all. So she's like, your dog is a menace to society. You need to let people know. And she just totally went off on me. And in that moment, part of me wanted to go off on her and be like, my dog's a menace to society. You're standing outside the door waiting there. Your little dog is like looking at my dog, yapping in. And I just said, I said, I'm sorry. He didn't mean to hurt. He didn't hurt anybody, and I just kept walking, and she kind of kept yelling after me. And is it in those little moments that we are creating karma for ourselves? I'm not saying she was creating negative karma. I'm not looking at her. I'm more looking at me and my response to what happened. I hope you're enjoying the podcast and videos so far. Please consider supporting Life, Death, and the Space Between on my Patreon page at Dr. Amy Robbins. You can donate any amount you feel comfortable with. Also, we are actively looking for sponsors. So if you or someone you know is interested in sponsoring the show, please reach out at dramyrobbins.com. I truly appreciate any support you can give.
Yeah. A great example. It's every moment. Every single moment we have the ability to create positive karma, negative karma. So in that moment, you had a choice. You could have yelled back at her. Hey, it's not my dog. It's yours. And you kind of got into that whole thing, and someone would have filmed it on YouTube, and then you would have been on YouTube. Right. So that's the good news, is they didn't catch that.
Right.
But that was one, you had that choice. But instead you chose, I'm not going to get into it with her. I apologize. I'm going to keep walking. And then hopefully you didn't carry it with you, and you just kind of breathed through it in case you felt
clearly I'm still carrying it 2 weeks later, but
I noticed that. Well, we should edit that part out of the podcast. Okay. But so but you made a choice at that moment. Now the next choice you can make is, hey, take a couple of breaths. And when that image comes back into your mind again, you could just kind of don't hold on to it. You're going to have plenty of thoughts like that. You just don't want to hold on to them.
Got it. Okay. And those experiences throughout the course of our day, our week, our lives are what creates our karma in this life, and also creates our karma moving forward into our next existence.
Yes, and definitely. But I also want to say something. Actually, somebody's yelling. So you see, the issue we have is we put is like, oh, he's yelling me, and she yelling me. You see, we said that, but actually, in how you take is not up to that person; it's up to you. So what I'm saying is, this person yelling. But if you take as, oh, this is an opportunity to really learn and patience or compassion, it's a beautiful way you can work with it, that situation. Or it's good to listen in somebody's yelling or talking. It's kind of good to listen. Sometimes we try to run away or avoid, but listens, then you can feel like a sort of, oh. So as the person says something, maybe you can, oh, thank you for the teaching me. I have these issues. Maybe I need some changes, you know? It's like learning something very, you don't want that way learning, but that way it's really you get it nicely as a teaching. And also same time, maybe what this person saying is nothing true. Then that's the problem. It's nothing is your problem or your dog's problem. It's definitely that person's problem. Then why you want to gauge that? Because you want to invoke into somebody's problem or somebody's karma you want to bring in. It's not, you know. And then also third thing is, in these difficult times in the world and these countries, like in America, you see the always left and right, always there's no middle ground. It's politically big mess, this country, you know, really, really difficult times. And then also financial times we go through. And maybe this person go through very difficult. Maybe that person really needs no more. There's already fire, no more gasoline, you see?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so in this way, this kind of situations, I always kind of enjoy, but sometimes people are mad me more. One time was somebody dropped me, I was in passenger seat. But my friend, maybe I think is slow. That's why the behind the car was so mad and comes next to us and showing me the middle finger. What I do, I put my hands together. I say, thank you. And you have a beautiful day. And he's so mad, so bored. But then I was like, I really feel that person's pain. So what I'm saying is, this is kind of moments of the other people's karma catches us. And then also we become making the stories and stuck in our head. So it's very important to sort of different way gauge. If we are upset, we not hurting that person, hurting ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it's like you have a bottle of water. Then you put the poison inside this water. You say, okay, I'm going to kill my enemy. And you drink the water. Actually, you're the one die, not enemy die. Person, even though you don't like the person.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the karma is just there's instant karmas. Like just Mori say, if you say something to the person, they say you back. Exactly then. It's like coming back and forth. This is instant karma. Or like I have a friend, he said he was take up animals' eyes, like a frog's eyes, because he was kind of a wild young man. And next day he threw a rock somewhere that hit on a wall and come back and stuck to his eye. He said that moment, he was like, oh, wow, yesterday I'm doing this, taking the frog's eyes. So now the instant karma happens. So you see, I have endless those kind of stories, but the really it's the karma is the driver of the universe, the driver of each individual person. And the karma is never missed because it starts with our own minds. Sometimes we think we're doing not bad karma, but we're sitting in the sofa thinking some bad things. Actually, we get negative karma. Sometimes even though we did something, maybe like you sort of, your dog barks, like you see this lady upset, then you're like, oh wow, my dog and me just dropped that person. But actually that's the moment of that dog's karma, and there's some kind of instant karma. It's not full karma of yours. You see, the karma never misses, and karma is just there's beyond this relative borrowed, so kind of very details, and nothing misses.
So Amy, you know, here's a good one. Here's a good something to think about, which is when that thought comes into your mind about that woman, and it gets you a little agitated. Well, you're still grasping onto that. What you could do is you could say, you know, that woman clearly is not happy. That woman is clearly upset, and you can try to develop some compassion. And by doing that, you'll be turning what could be negative karma for you by going back and grasping, I can't believe she said that, to positive karma. So negative karma is also something that's very selfish reaction. Positive karma is developed for selfless reaction. So you're turning something negative into something positive. The more you do that, the less likely that thought is going to pop into your mind again.
So how does that then manifest into our next life? Back to that question I asked before. Perfect. What gets reborn when we die?
How do we? Yeah, exactly. So why do we start the book with karma? Because as Lama said, karma drives the world, and how our personal world, I should say. So how I am now will determine how I am to the next moment, the next minute, et cetera, et cetera. So including as I pass from death into the afterlife. For example, if tonight I watch TV and I watch a horror movie, my dreams probably going to involve a lot of that imagery. When I wake up, I'm not going to get a good night's sleep when I wake up. Some of that feeling might still be there. So that follows through. So when I die, if I die angry at I can't believe it, my family, they didn't come to see me, or whatever's on my mind, then when my body is gone, my brain, it's all gone, it's dead. But that consciousness, or that karma, it's another way to say it, that follows through, because I'm tight, that follows through into the afterlife. The same way that a horror movie follows through into my dreams. And so if you're now in the afterlife, which is kind of like a dream in some sense, and you're taken up with all that anger, then when it's time for rebirth, you're probably not going to have an auspicious rebirth. You're probably not going to be able to choose, and I use that word carefully, who your next family is going to be. So that's really where the Tibetan Book of the Dead for beginners comes in, as well as the original one, which is if you can start now, literally at this moment, working on your karma, becoming less selfish, having more compassion, understanding that the world is ephemeral, impermanent, and that carries through next moment, next minute, next day, et cetera, all your decisions, your habits of speech, mind, and actions, that follows through into the afterlife, which then can follow through into the rebirth.
So you said how you choose to come back, and then you said I use that word auspiciously.
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me about that. That's where I have to turn it over to Lama. So yeah, I'm going to let Lama answer that question.
Okay. I'm curious about that, because I know in the book you talk about navigating rebirth, and that some Buddhists are able to dictate who and how they are reborn. And can anybody do
that? Yes. That's why the Buddha's teachings is, Buddha said himself, doesn't matter the genders, doesn't matter man, woman, or rich or poor. The matter is the motivation and joyful effort. So anything you wish is, you have to start within ourselves. But also in that case, also you have to looking for a great master, like the great Guru or Lama, and who knows and that lower practices to guide you in through. So, and when I in this course, and if you practice these levels of meditation enough, then when you are free from our poisons, like we are free from ignorance, free from hatred, free from anger, free from grasping, free from pride and jealousy, and all these free things that we are free, then even though we can see which way we want to born, we have more choices open in our lives. And that's a karmically we can work. But then also don't need through the karmically, there's a shortcut, is called POA. And the POA is you can really practice, and that's called the transfer moment of death for the consciousness. So anybody really wants to die, they can just sit and they just do meditating and just doing prayer, they can die. And I saw by my eyes many people died that ways. And today's world,
completely physically die and come back, or just
physically die. You can die just completely. Sort of in my monastery right now, I just talking to somebody last year, and he said it's amazing. There's elderly people who dies. They just saying, "Oh, I think I see my master, and I feel the death, and I'm going to die. Please don't disturb me, and don't come." The families just say, and then the couple days they don't say, "Please don't come today or tomorrow," or something. They make it like, and then when they come, they're already dead and sit and meditate. And so like that, in the karma we talk about, this story comes, I wanted to share with you, but once in Tibetan, there's a true story that's many years ago, but there's a thief. He's always targeting rich people, and he can steal a lot of money or a lot of expensive things. So then he noticed there's one Lama. He has a beautiful house, and also he has artifacts, like a very antique stuff in his home. And then this thief, he was so perfect target, this Lama. Then the Lama was lived by himself in the forest and no neighbors. Then he's like, okay, perfect. Okay, what time is the best time to kill this Lama? And the thief he's watching. But this Lama, he does in the midnight, he does this meditation, couple hours. But at the same time, he uses bells and drums, like he doing these prayers. He's like, oh, it's perfect time. There's noise, a lot of noise. I can just come and just kill him. So he did that. And he come, then he put the knife and cut it, this Lama's head. The head fell down and the blood has come. Then he was, okay, I come back in the morning early. I'm going to collect all these antique art. Then he went away. Morning very early, when dawn starts in the east, he comes in. And the Lama was cooking breakfast. And the thief was just shocked. The Lama said, oh, hi, I'm just making breakfast. Do you want to join with me? Oh, there's somebody so early. So, okay, he's like, oh, I'm making breakfast. So nice to have some company sometimes, so we can have nice breakfast. That moment, thief was like, say, I am so sorry, I apologize. I really, apologize from my heart. You are a really good Lama because I thought it was just you're a rich person. But then Lama said, why? What are you talking? He said, oh, I killed the last night to you because I just see you have these expensive things. The Lama said, oh, that was you. The Lama said, yes, I have this house. I have these things. What happens is my sponsor, that's a family, rich family, sponsoring, always give me food. And, I'm just doing the retreat. They pay for everything. Then the parents died. The children built this big home. And also the parents' artworks, they have collections. They give it to me, say, our parents loves you so much, Lama, then we want to give it to you. So then his Lama says, that's why I'm keeping them. But if you ask me, say, can you give me? I will happy to give it because nothing's belong to me, even though my body's not belong to me. The Lama says, you can take any time. But then his Lama says, last night, you cut my hair. I thought that was just an illusion and dream. But that's the real. The Lama says, thank you very much because I can see, and when one lifetime I was a child, I killed bee and I cut the head of the bee. And that karma was clearly, I stole all the karma because most of the karma, I finish it through the meditation. But now you really help me to finish in that karma. Thank you so much. That moment, Lama's head is full. And the thief become very, very scared. And what happened to there? And he took all the Lama's artifact, all these antique things went to the monastery, gave it to the monastery. The thief was crying, saying, I created this karma. Now I'm scared. I saw it with this Lama. Then he went into the monastery. Then he meditated and practiced and want to work good karma and all his life. In the end, he was really famous master.
I love that story. Thank you. So, Amy, I want to answer your question a little bit differently, which is, okay, how do you determine your rebirth? That's the bottom line. I want to make sure I have the right family. I want to get in this neighborhood. I want to be reborn as a Buddhist, whatever it is. And in the extreme cases, if you look at people like the Dalai Lama and great masters, they actually will leave a letter for their students explaining exactly where they're going to be reborn, the kind of family, et cetera, et cetera. And then when they are reborn, they are found by other monks and their former students and brought back to the monastery so they can learn more and be of service and be of benefit to other sentient beings. So that's in the extreme case where these great beings can actually determine before they die, or as they die, where they're going to be reborn. But what about the rest of us? The rest of us regular people. Mm-hmm. So we don't really have
who
that
I'm
ability.
Like thinking about like an ant I stepped on and when I'm going to get crushed. If this guy cut a head off a bee and came back and ended up being beheaded himself.
So you can't change that, what you've done in the past, as we talked about before, but you can change what you do going forward. But how do you so what you can do now going forward, let's say you did some things Lama mentioned, you meditate, you're less selfish, you're less jealous, all these wonderful, wonderful things. Then when it is time for rebirth, it's not like you get to pick and choose, who should I be? There's no thinking, there's no conceptual thought going on, but because your karma will make that determination. It's kind of like the law of gravity. You throw the ball up in the air, the gravity takes over,
Really, you finish in the karma, then you have whole vintage and choice. Like, for example, Kambo Minsa Rinpoche is one of my teachers. I have some teachings from him. And this young lady coming to this Lama to always bring some offerings and things. And then the Lama says, oh, you are my mother, and they give gifts and things. Then, in Tibet, and like that means it's sort of like a very good how do you say, like a very polite, like somebody special, like the mother is the special person in our lives, right? Like somebody compares to your mother means something very special. Not in America, you can't say that. They're very mad if you say that. But so what happens is then this lama passed away and he born in that young lady. And he was said, okay, I'm choosing you as a mother, and she was thinking, okay, like you kind like mother, right? She thinking, but actually he means like, okay, I'm choosing you a mother, I'm coming back to you. And then he born, and right now it's a young lama and her son.
And so when we are reborn, it is our consciousness, our soul that comes back. Is there still an expression? Maybe that's not the way I want to ask it. How does one know when you come back that they go and the Dalai Lama writes this letter, they go find the person who's now in a human body again? How do they know that that is actually the soul of the previous Lama or Dalai Lama?
There's many children that remember their past lives. You notice there's so many of their many books, many even though YouTube videos. So there's 6 children talk about past lives. Very beautiful. Actually, I have that, but at the video. So what I'm saying is, yes. In general, ordinary people, we don't looking for it. Sometimes in Tibet, we do looking for. Sometimes they want to know where their parents are born. You see, they wanted to know, but most not. But the high lamas, they're always going to another high lamas and astrologers, and they all like kind of ask them to decide. Some special lamas they can see and they can recognize somebody. It's easy. Then like Dalai Lama's case also, they say, okay, this in area, this kind of family. And also, even though some lamas went to, there's a special lake, they did a fire ceremony and they did some prayer to the blessing the lake. Then there's map rise, and then the shows of the where he is, Dalai Lama was born, and what's the father's name, mother's name, and what's kind of, even though they have a dog and everything this is. And that's the way happens and like Dalai Lama's case, but many high lamas, same way they recognize, okay, so and so in go this east or sometimes say south, their son village, this family, house doors towards south or west, the house color, they have animal, and that's the way they recognize. And then so also, when you arrive there, you take a previous lamas, 3 symbols belong to him, and mixed with many things, then put in child. The child, what they pick up, they look. The child picks, oh, this is mine. Sometimes say, this is mine. Or child is so small, they can really talk. They just grab one thing, can let go. And so it's just, then you can see, it's like then one guy, there's a long story, but I just made 2 words. So he lost his best friend. Then he keeping his prayer beads, like for then he have child. The child, when start talking, then say, this mine, he hold all the time.
So, yeah, in those cases, like the Dalai Lama and great masters, they go through a test. So they're showed 10, 15 different objects. You know, if the master has a bell, they'll show 3 different bells. If the master has beads, they'll show 3 or 4 different sets of beads. And the little boy or little girl have to get it correct. And plenty of times the boy doesn't, and in this case, not the right person. But for other people, like they're not great masters, There are now documented, I think, over 3,000 cases. University of Virginia has a large department of scientists and doctors where children come and they say, hey, I remember my past lives, and they'll interview them, do research. Is there any way that boy could have known where that street was in France in 1742? No.
Right.
How could that person, and they'll go through that very, very strict research to determine, is what this 4-year-old is saying about his or her past life. And if they couldn't have known that, so that's how we know today.
Could you, Morty, give us a quick, if there is a quick overview of the Bardots? Is it a way to do it quickly?
You always give me the hard questions. I'm here for the easy questions. Lama is here for the hard questions. So, the way to look at it, let's say you have a great Lama that can lead your consciousness through those few weeks in the Bardo, wonderful. But if you don't have a great Lama, you can still do some of these practices yourself. And that's what we talk about in this book, which is how to change your karma, not a week before you die, but right now. And as you accumulate those good habits and you rid yourself of jealousy and anger and irritation, annoyance, and all these negative states of mind, then when you're in the Bardo, you're not going to be distracted by all of these reflections of your mind that come out. It's just like a dream state. If you recognize when you're dreaming at night that you're dreaming, then you don't get worked up about it. You don't get distracted by it. If you don't recognize that you're dreaming, then you wake up and, oh, it's a nightmare. Oh my God. And then he did this to me. So when you recognize that you're in the Bardo and you don't get distracted and you're free from that negative karma, then when it's time to go into the next life, the high likelihood is that you'll be drawn into a family or a woman or a husband and wife where it is, we'll call it an auspicious rebirth.
I have another
question. I'll give you an analogy. I know you have trouble believing this. So I'll give you an analogy.
Okay.
No analogy is perfect. And it's the first time I've given it, so be careful.
Okay. Okay.
Let's say I'm 18 years old and I want to go to a party and I want to meet a woman. Could be meeting a man, but I want to meet a woman. If I go into that party, there's a lot of women there, but I go into that, I'm angry, I'm annoyed, I'm irritated. Well, I'm not necessarily going to make the right choices, the right decisions. People may not be attracted to me. Mm-hmm. But if I go into that party and I'm happy and I'm joyful and I'm compassionate and I'm loving and I feel good about myself because I've been doing that all my, life, when I walk into that party, I will attract and be attracted to a much happier person.
Right. Can I ask you one more question, a little bit personal, because we spoke a little bit before? How does the son of a rabbi end up a Buddhist believing in the afterlife?
When I was in my teens and I had no interest in Judaism, and I went to yeshiva, no interest whatsoever, but it turns out my father had a very, very strong interest in death and dying and mourning. And he actually did one of his PhDs in it. I had no idea about any of this. And yet here I am, very interested in the topic. Obviously, that's how I found and how I was drawn to Lama Lanang. So obviously I had a little bit of a spiritual aspect, a spiritual upbringing, but I also have as we talked earlier before the show, very strong interest in math, science, finance, things like that. But when I watched all of these and read all these books about near-death experiences that people had that are so difficult to explain, and about all these thousands of children that are reborn, I couldn't ignore that. I just couldn't ignore that. And I felt very, so I was very drawn to it. It's not a logical answer, but once I was watching that, it was just so, for me, something very, very obvious and natural. So I didn't even, it's not like I had to weigh a scale. Gee, should I believe in this or not? I don't know. What do you think? Well, maybe. It wasn't like that. Once I started seeing and learning about it, I was like, it was almost like I came home. That kind of feeling.
And then would you say, just to kind of bring this full circle and help make sense of it, that part of your karma and your parents' karma was perhaps working together through this piece of you not feeling like you belonged in this family, and you move, and them accepting you and you accepting them. I mean, is that kind of how this all plays itself out? Very simplified, obviously.
Sure. I don't think it's a logical thing. The way you describe it sounds very logical, but that didn't really work that way. So I think as I mentioned earlier, I hadn't really been in touch with my family for quite some time as I was practicing Buddhism for the last 40 years or so. But when my mother was dying, I came back, of course, immediately. And she asked me to teach her how to meditate. And this is a religious, Orthodox, conservative Jew who was meditating.
Interesting. Okay. And then how it all shows up for us is what we have to be conscious to, I guess, right? If you were so preoccupied perhaps with, I'm just supposing here, like your relationship with your parents being so difficult and them maybe not speaking to you because of this, and you being very distraught by that, then you might not have been open to finding a teacher who could help move you forward in the space in which you were looking to continue to learn and grow.
I love the logic. That's great logic. It didn't quite happen like that.
I like trying to distill things down for people.
Right. Yeah. So to distill things down is when the dog and the lady with the other dog start screaming and yelling at you, you have a wonderful opportunity to practice compassion for that person and maybe even love, and not think about it. 3 seconds later, you move on. Now that's great in saying that, but we have to practice that, and practice is where it comes in. So we could say, hey, stop being angry. Good luck with that. But when you practice meditation and you practice all of these, and it's not just about Buddhism, this is any religion, when you practice love and compassion real time, when you're out and about and you're in the coffee shop, in the supermarket, and someone's treating you poorly, that's an opportunity to practice, to retrain your mind so that you don't create negative karma.
Mm-hmm. And I love,
so you don't drink your own poison.
Right. And in the back of the book, I think you say, how we live is how we will die. And I think this is so important. I interviewed Rabbi Steve Leder. I don't know if you're familiar with him. And we talked about the same concept. Can you, as we get ready to close this out, either Lama or Morty, just speak to that? How we live is how we will die. And so what does that mean now in this moment?
Means, and definitely you see, and the how we live is not just about your house or body or things. It is about the mind. How our mind live in every moment. In that moment is we're going to die. And and that's why I earlier say it's very important to you enjoy every moment, and then you have peaceful way die because you automatically this joy. But what I'm saying is how you work with your mind. Your mind is the real process of the death. And so the death is something, a beautiful thing. It's not something everybody sort of don't want to hear, don't want to talk about. But you see, we all have a birth and death. The birth is, you see, the mother go through so much. Sometimes even though almost die. And child almost die because goods to push out. And unconscious sometimes. But families say, oh, congratulations, oh, I'm happy for you, so, right? But when dying, everybody crying, upset, sad. But the death is in the birth is actually death is more peaceful. What I'm saying. So what I'm saying is in this moment, you start to create the peace and loving kindness in your heart. And that transforms, this moment transforms this day transforms this month transforms the year transforms your entire life. Then there's no such a thing, a death, too afraid, because it's natural processing. And even though death is, if you really study death, death is become liberation. But that means you have to start right now. That's why I'm saying, and how you living and that way you're dying is exactly, it's to talk about your mind.
Well, thank you both so much for your time today. The book is The Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. This is like the Cliff's Notes version. It's simple. You can get through it quite quickly, which I'm always grateful for because I read my books. And it's just a great little handbook in terms of how you are. If you're afraid of how you're going to die, then you're probably afraid of how you're living. So this is a great book to use as a tool to really help you in your life, not just as you die. So thank you both so much for your time and patience today and figuring out all the technology and everything. I was actually, Morty, when we started, and Morty was walking through Lama and his wife. Was it your wife? Yeah. His wife. And he was just, I wish I had recorded the tone and the I was literally thinking in my mind, he is so incredibly patient right now. It's like, there's no rush. There's nothing else to do. I just need to make this happen. And I was like, I need to internalize a little bit of this in my life, in my day. So thank you both so much for your time, for your knowledge, for your wisdom, and for this great book that makes it easy for those of us who are afraid of the big one to just dig into some of these concepts. So thank you both.
Thank you, Amy.
Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.